everyone, and welcome back to the coverage of Eternal Weekend live from Prague. Philip, how are you enjoying today?
Oh, the games have been absolutely insane. Between intricate combat, spells on the stack, counter magic, interaction. We've seen some, wild turn one plays. We've seen games that go until turn 25. So we have had the whole range of possible games, and I highly recommend that everyone rewatch the VOD after the tournament concludes.
Yeah, for me, the craziest round was probably the Team of Rhinos player playing a violent outburst on essentially his turn 0 on his opponent's turn 1 in your upkeep before you play your first land. I'm gonna exile a Simian Spirit Guide and 2 Elvish Spirit Guides, get 3 mana, play Violent Outburst, and I'm gonna put 2 4/4s into play. Now you can go. You can finally play your land. That was for me the coolest moment of today. We are ready for, I believe that's round number 8. So there's 2 more rounds to go after this, 10 rounds total. And we have Mark Tobias playing the Doomsday combo against Paul Dobritz playing the Storm combo. So both players are going to be doing very similar things. Philip, what are the differences in these decks? What are they trying to do? How do they differ?
So Doomsday is way more interactive. So Doomsday has got Daze, has got Force of Will, and I will say it right off the bat that Storm wants to finish the game off with Tendrils of Agony, but Doomsday has got triple main deck Veil of Summer.
Okay.
So this can be painful. This can be very, very painful. So I very much prefer Mark's position because not only can he win pretty cleanly very early, he's got a lot of relevant interaction. So
is there anything in the Storm deck that interacts with the opponent? Like, do these decks typically play cards like Thoughtseize? Because I'm looking at Paul's deck, and there is no Thoughtseize, nothing like that. He does have 4 copies of Veil of Summer of his own, but that's not going to be as relevant as against the Storm combo.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Mark's Veil is much better than Paul's Veil. Basically, that's the way you look at it, because Mark's Veil will blank Tendrils of Agony, while Paul's Veil won't stop Thassa's Oracle, right? It will stop Force of Will, admittedly, but other than that, it's not that great. So Storm has got some sideboard Thoughtseizes, but that will come in only after game 1. And Mark Tobias also has Thoughtseizes and even more counter magic post-board. So I think Mark is favored pre and post-board at the same time. So We'll see how that actually goes.
So this is a matchup that I would expect the player that wins the die roll to have a big advantage because they're going to be the one, trying to combo off first. There's not that much interaction. There is the Veil of Summer. There are some counters on Mark's side, and Paul actually takes a mulligan to 5, so that is pretty brutal. Perhaps looking for some crazy fast opening hand, but I think that's gotta give the advantage to Mark, who was also very happy with his opener already.
To add even more insult to injury, Mark has got triple the One Ring, which also stops Tendrils of Agony. So you've got the One Ring, Veil of Summer, and a bunch of counter magic on top of your own combo. So I think Mark Tobias is heavily favored. And that's also why I like Doomsday in general. Now, fun fact, or maybe a quiz question to you and to chat. So Mark is 6-1, right? So he lost only once this whole tournament. What deck do you think he lost to? What deck did Mark lose to? Chat, have you got any ideas?
I would say something super fast, something like, Infect or some other combo deck. That would be my guess.
So the person who has got the most correct answer is Unzid MTG, saying Stomping Ground Junt Guy, because that's exactly who he lost to. He lost to Junt. So the exact polar opposite of what you just said. Certainly not a fast combo deck. So yeah, that's just a fun fact for everybody there. Junt told Mark, well, you're not winning this one. Okay, so now, Paul, we've got Mishra's Bobble, we've got the Fetchland.
Okay, so walk us through the way you're going to sequence Mishra's Bobble with a fetch land on your side of the board, because I see a lot of players just playing Mishra's Bubble, crack it, take a look at your deck. I'm going to get a little bit of information for the premier deck, draw a card. Is there something better you can do if you have a fetch land?
Yeah, so what you can do is take a peek at your own top of the deck, and then if you like it, you pass the turn, draw the card, everything's good. If you don't like it, you can crack the fetchland, shuffle the card back in, resetting the top card, and drawing something else, something fresh, which is a classic way to manipulate your library without spending actual resources.
So Paul with a nice start there. I mean, mulligan the 5, that doesn't feel great. He was able to crack that Mishra's Bubble, get a little bit of, take a quick peek at his top card. I think he shuffled before drawing, so he was drawing something else. And this is a matchup where neither player is going to be adding too much to the board.
Wow.
But Mark might just yeah, okay.
He just goes ritual, and he might go like turn 1, the One Ring. Oh, another ritual.
Oh my god, he has so much red. There's a third ritual, there's a Lotus Petal, there's a Street Wraith. I think he might just win right now.
Wow, this is insane. So the One Ring on turn 1. And there is still ritual, so he can maybe play the One Ring, gain protection, Dark Ritual again, Doomsday, and then you've got double draw available from the One Ring and from the Street Wraith.
What is this? What are we watching?
This is insane. Wow.
This looks more like Vintage than Legacy. That's a very, very busted opening hand.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I would love to bring Doomsday to this tournament if I played. Because
so walk us through the Doomsday pause here. If you are Mark, as someone who is experienced with the Doomsday deck, what are you thinking here? Obviously, one thing we need to mention, this is a closed decklist tournament. So Mark doesn't know he's up against a Storm deck that took a bunch of mulligans and now is down on resources and probably doesn't have interaction. So what are you thinking? What are you thinking if you're Mark? Is there a line available to you that wins the game on the spot?
Yeah, so basically you need to draw into Thassa's Oracle. You've got 2 draws available and just a single blue mana. So you have to somehow generate more blue. So if you put on top, for example, Lotus Petal, Thassa's Oracle, you can draw both of them and play them, but you would be 1 card missing. But what you could put on top is, for example, Street Wraith, Lotus Petal, Thassa's Oracle, and 2 cards which don't really matter. And then you draw, for example, Street Wraith off of Street Wraith, and then you play against Street Wraith, the One Ring, and you've got the second blue and Thassa's Oracle. So yeah, so one example would be cantrip on top, 3 mana cantrip. So for example, Street Wraith, then Thassa's Oracle, Lotus Petal, and the last 2 cards that don't matter. Yeah, so that would be just one example of the pile. So Mark has going for, you've got the cantrip, he's got Thassa's Oracle, he's got lead. He knows he's got 2 redraws available. So what you can also do is draw lead, play lead, crack lead for triple blue, and do all of that with Street Wraith cycle on the stack. Oh, just so many roads lead to Rome at this point.
Okay, so looks like Mark did go for the Doomsday. He's playing a Brainstorm, leaves him with 1 card in the deck. After also cycling the Street Wraith, I believe.
Yeah,
so
and Paul
he basically just needs to make sure he doesn't die, to miscounting his life total or something along those lines. Too many Street Wraiths. Yeah, I think Mark has this locked up.
Yeah, and I can see Paul just looking around. He's just like, well, yeah. But if I were Paul, I would just be looking very closely at Mark's hands to see that everything is done properly, to know exactly what he's doing, because this could be maybe some information for you, right? That he plays the One Ring, that he plays these types of cantrips, that he goes for these types of piles. I really love a comment in chat that Tobias knows what he does as long as it isn't Jund on the other side of the table. So Yeah. What do you want to dodge this tournament? Jund. I'm fine with everything else. Okay, so we put two. Yeah, putting two back, but unsure which two to put back. Puts the other two back, it seems.
Street Wraith. No, LED. Okay. Crack that.
Yeah, and then you get blue, you've got double blue open, pa 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 pa. Show me the rest of the deck. I win.
So Mark just casually won on turn 1 of this game. No big deal.
So also, just to put it into perspective, he also managed to play the One Ring. So he squeezed in a 4 mana card into this whole thing.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, you can't really possibly script that any better. On top of that, Paul mulligans to 5, doesn't really have any kind of interaction. And not only does Mark win right away, but as you mentioned, he also manages to play the One Ring somewhere in there for good measure.
Yeah, and some people are asking for the Doomsday list, and I'm telling you, it's a spicy Doomsday list because not only have we got the One Ring that you've seen, there are 3 copies of the One Ring in this deck. But if that wasn't enough, as you can see on the screen now, there are 3 Teferi Time Raveler, and it's also not a blue-black, but it's a 4-color Doomsday deck because you've got Tropical Island, Scrubland, Tundra. You play 3 main deck Veils. There's just so much going on here.
Something you mentioned earlier is look at how many lands is this deck playing. There are 15 lands. One of them is a Cavern of Souls. 6 of them are fetchable lands. Is that typical for a combo deck like this? I mean, 15 is not a lot. You're trying to cast a fairy. You're trying to cast the One Ring. Obviously, your deck is filled with cards like Street Wraith that effectively make your deck smaller, right? You can cycle them. But still, 15 seems pretty low, even if you are playing, a bunch of card selection spells like Brainstorm and Ponder.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like you also, on top of everything you've said, you've got Lorien's Reveal that finds a land, but you would have to spend a full mana to do so. And, considering it's a deck that wants to win on turn 1, you don't really want that. Now, I want to mention one very funny aspect of what this happened. Because if you are Mark Tobias, how do you even sideboard?
I was going to exactly ask you that question. Yeah, I just realized, what do? You saw a tropical island.
Mishra's Bubble.
And a Mishra's Bubble. And then the game ended, right? So there's a lot of, that could be some kind of Rock Delver, right? Something with Dragon's Rage Channeler. This is certainly 17 different decks that your opponent could be playing.
And he sides out Force of Negation, and he sides in Carpet of Flowers. Yeah, I think he puts the opponent on the Rug Delver. Which is unfortunate because this Force of Negation could be huge. Thankfully for Mark, he will keep Veils because they're still fine. Okay, he swaps. Did he hear me?
This looks like Mark can hear us. We can tell you we're very, very, very far away from Mark. We're not even in the same room, so there is no way he can currently hear us. But yeah, that certainly looked like he heard that, yeah.
Okay, so now, we're looking through the options. Dark Ritual. Yeah, okay, the One Ring. Yeah, he doesn't know how to approach this. It's very interesting. Do you want to go fast or do you want to go control-y?
Oh my god, is he boarding out those Veil of Summers? No, right? Okay. When in doubt, cut one of each, right? Keep your combo, trim one here, one there. The cards that are not vital to the combo, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and what Paul could possibly do, because he knows exactly what he's up against, is bring in Thought Seizes. So, also interestingly, he would bring in Surgical Extraction to mess up Mark's piles. Because crucially, you can search the library, and so even if you have no target, I mean, you don't even exile anything relevant, you're messing up the pile, which could completely destroy the whole situation for him. And there is also a single Dress Down. So what does Dress Down do in this matchup, considering Mark plays one creature?
Yeah, playing Dress Down before Thassa's Oracle gets into play, or ideally when it's on the stack, means that it's going to come into play as a 1/3. And yeah, that's a really nice 1/3 you have. Unfortunately, there's no trigger, so now you have 0 cards in your deck, and you're just gonna draw a card next turn.
Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, lots of small, things both players can do, but and on top of that, Mark doesn't know what he's sideboarding against. But I think I would still give the upper hand in the matchup to Mark, given how his deck is constructed and how powerful the Veil is in this matchup.
Okay, so the hand is Lorien Revealed, Veil of Summer, Edge of Autumn, Doomsday, Double, and Force of Will. Yeah, looks good to me. We said 15 lands, but it seems like Mark always has them.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I am surprised. 15 is a very, very low count. You see a lot of these Delver decks that are typically playing, 17, 18, sometimes more than that, and they also have Mishra's Bubble. They also have Ponder, Brainstorm. All these card selection spells. Although they maybe run a little bit extra, just to have cards like Wasteland.
So there is a question in chat whether you can create a pile that is surgical proof. And so basically all depends on how early you do it and how much setup you have. Because if your hand is, for example, double Street Wraith, you've got much more leeway in what's happening. So having Cyclers in hand, right? Or maybe a Ponder. Because if you know you're going to draw a bunch of cards, then it doesn't really matter if the card is like a third down or second down, because you're going to draw most of them. So it is possible to have surgical proof piles, but it's still another measure that you might force Mark to go through. Okay, so now we see Brainstorm. So there is one thing I fear most when I play Legacy. One thing I fear the most, and it's my opponent goes turn 1, land, Brainstorm. Right? On the very first turn, just land drop, Brainstorm. And when they do that, I'm scared. I know I'm either dead or I'm going to be dead.
What are you usually thinking? Like, are you thinking they're gonna go off on turn 1, or are you thinking maybe they don't have a land? They're trying to play that before I can resolve my Bowmasters, or what do you think is going on?
Yeah, I would be mostly afraid of my opponent trying to find, like here, lead or, exactly, Mox Opal, Lotus Petals, and just try to win off that position. So certainly I'm afraid of them going off Veil of Summer.
Oh my god! Not only does that counter the Thoughtseize, it also preemptively stops Paul from being able to combo off and cast Tendrils. So that's certainly what's going through Paul's mind right now. Well, that was a very, very, very broken Veil of Summer right there.
Yeah, and I love the dead stare that Mark Tobias showed. He was just like, Veil of Summer and just no facial expression. Wow!
No.
Wow!
No. Is Mark going to be able to win? Did this game literally just take 3 turns to finish?
Wow, it's unreal. He's just Veil, Untap, Dark Ritual, Doomsday. I mean, if you're not going to at least try Doomsday after this tournament, I won't be able to convince you otherwise.
Right, but at the same time, like, these are literally the best draws Mark could have possibly had, right? Game 1, you win on the play, or you win on your turn 1. You have everything you can ask for. Game 2, despite not even knowing what you're up against, you have that turn 1 Veil to stop the Thoughtseize, stop the opponent from comboing off. They're not going to be able to play Tendrils. You untap and you have to win. Are you kidding me? Like, this cannot possibly go any better.
While I agree with that, remember that Mark is 6-1, so he's either drawing God hands the whole day, or maybe this deck just has a ton of really good hands,
Yeah.
or is or can take advantage of good to really good hands. So Edge of Autumn, redraw one of the cards of the top, Brainstorm. I assume one of the cards of the top is going to be lead or some Lotus Petals. Or, there is a lead, yeah.
Mark also has double force in his hand for good measure. You could certainly tell that he knows he's already won by the speed of his play. Like, now he's not even trying to think like, hey, what can I lose against? There's just nothing you can have.
And wow, this is good game has been called. Handshake there. Mark Tobias 7-1. in a prime position to top 8 this event and potentially take it down.
This was, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a more brutal game of Legacy in a very long time. Mark with the two very, very good hands. On the other hand, our Storm player pretty unlucky with the opening hand. Took a bunch of mulligans, got killed on turn 1 and turn 2. It doesn't really get worse than that. If I was Mark, I would probably go and buy a lottery ticket just for good measure. You know, maybe I'm just having a really, really good day, and yeah, that was a very good showing by the Doomsday player. We do have a backup feature match for you, and this time we do have one deck that we haven't shown you on the stream yet. We do have 5-color control. That's a very typical, up the beanstalk deck. So you have the usual black is for Orcish Bowmasters, green is for the up the beanstalk. You also have Uro as the finisher. Blue is for cards like Force of Will, Brainstorm, the counter spells, the card selection pieces like Ponder, Lorien, Revealed obviously can't be missing here if you're playing up the beanstalk. Blue is also for Murktide Regent, which is one of your finishers. And then there's white. White is typically for Teferi. I think there is no Teferi in Williams' deck though. But he does have Terminus, some removal like Leyline Binding obviously goes hand in hand with Up the Beanstalk, and I think there is also Prismatic Ending. Is this strange that there's no Teferi? Or is this normal that there's typically somewhere between 1 and 3?
Yeah, I would say exactly that. We've seen multiple 4-color lists with like just a single Teferi, and for example, one more in the sideboard. Now, what I'm really surprised is, there are no in the sideboard completely. So that is very interesting. But I guess William decided that he doesn't want to go this route. He goes with Murktide Regent, Bowmaster, and Saint Catherine, and just wants to close the games.
All right, on the other side of the table, we have David Reinholds playing the Mono Blue 8-cast deck. Can you walk us through this deck, and why is it called 8-cast? Like, does it actually make sense? Are there actually 8 cast cards?
Yeah, so it's an 8-cast deck because there is a card which is Thoughtcast. For 4 and blue, you can draw 2 cards, so basically a divination. But it's discounted for every artifact you have. So in the perfect scenario, we have at least 4 artifacts, so it's discounted fully down to a single blue, draw 2. So that'll be 4 casts. There are also Thought Monitors, and Thought Monitors are another copy of Thoughtcast in a way, because it's the same effect. Enter the battlefield, draw 2 cards with affinity for artifacts. So now in this particular version, there is only one Thought Monitor, so it's more like a 5-cast, but 5-cast doesn't roll off the tongue the same way 8-cast does. And this deck has 8 lands indicated in MTG Melee, but don't get fooled. There's Urza's Saga, quadruple copy, and 4 Seat of the Synod, amounting to 16 lands. And then, as Chad has pointed out, there is Clown Car in the deck, and there are 2 copies, and it's one of the uncards that is actually tournament legal. So what it does, it's a 1/1 vehicle with an X in the cost. So when it enters the battlefield, you will roll X 6-sided dice. So basically, the more you pay, the more times you roll a die. For each odd result, you get an artifact token, and for each even, you get a +1/+1 counter on the car. So it's like a mana sink type of effect. Other than that, it's a pretty typical 8-cast deck with Patchwork Automaton, Emry, which I personally really, really like, Kappa Cannoneer.
What's your game plan? Like, what kind of opening hand are you looking for?
Yeah, I would happily open with a bunch of zeros and play turn 1 Emry, and then follow it up with turn 1 or turn 2 Patchwork Automaton and make it much, much bigger. With 4 Ancient Tomb in the deck, you can actually play turn 1 Patchwork Automaton and follow it up with like Lotus Petal, Mishra's Bauble, Mox Opal, and go to town. You've got 2 main deck Chalice of the Void, which is placed on 1 because it doesn't affect you that much. But crucially, you're pretty linear. You've got a really decent plan of your own, but you're not dead to something your opponent does, thanks to 4 Force of Will and 2 Metallic Rebuke. So you're actually pretty interactive.
Yeah, so you're kind of like an affinity deck with interaction thrown in, right? Looks like
Yeah,
William
exactly.
is taking a couple of mulligans.
Okay, Volcanic Island passed the turn, and it seems like David is the one who's up a game. Wait. Is it a fetch on upkeep or?
I'm not
Because
exactly sure where we are right now, yeah.
yeah, because I blinked for a moment and I think it's David's turn, but then we've got this weird fetch. I'm not sure if David passed back or it's an upkeep removal spell. It might be to play around Force of Negation. Brainstorm
We
after
fetched
fetch.
first and then cast a Brainstorm.
Okay, not gonna lie, blinking was a deadly mistake for me. Because now
I think what happened was that David drew a card, didn't draw a land, decided to pass the turn, and William cracked the fetch land, untap drew. I think maybe he drew the Brainstorm on his own turn. The Automaton perhaps does not want to attack into a possible Orcish Bowmasters, which is something that William was certainly representing with two lands up. One of them was a fetch land, so that was certainly a possibility. I think David is stuck on one land, and now William is going to be able to play land number 3, possibly. Yeah, that was actually in David's turn.
Yeah, that's a good read. And now we've got Triumph of Saint Catherine.
So there you have the answer why the fetch land was cracked first, right? Because you actively wanted to keep the cards on top because you wanted to put the Triumph on the top of your deck and not shuffle it away with the fetch land. This way, William was able to set up the deck, play the Miracle card, put the 4/4 in play, the 5/5 in play, and pass the turn.
Yeah, interestingly, if you reveal Saint Catherine from Miracle, you can actually hold priority and fetch in response to your own Miracle, and both get another land and play the Miracle. So now we see 2 mana, up the Beanstalk. And David is really struggling with the mana situation. He cannot push his advantage. Up the Beanstalk, Force of Will in response. Pitching Forecast. I mean, if you're left with just Patchwork Automaton, you don't have gas to make it bigger.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, David, he's in a really, really tough spot. That looks like a Mishra's Bubble, so at least he's going to be able to draw a card. But he still needs to find at least another land to be able to start playing some spells.
Attack for 2. I mean, it's still a modest attack. Look at the top card of the library. Pass the turn, draw. It's always a pretty interesting giveaway when you bubble your opponent, they reveal the cards to you, and you're like, wait, let me read it. Let me read that. And you usually know what's on top because you know, like, no, 3/4 of your deck is pretty obvious. And is this one of that your opponent may not have seen? Okay, lose 2.
Is David going to be able to finally find land number 3? I mean, William is up to 5 lands right now. That is pretty wild. Wow, no land pass again. That's super unfortunate for David there. William does have the Bowmaster, actually, so good choice by David to not attack there with the Automaton. I mean, he's trying to make the best of his unfortunate start. Obviously, with just one Ancient Tomb in play, there's not that much you can do. But that was a good read from him there on turn 2.
Yeah, certainly. But now, even if William has what were these 2 cards? I can't really make out. Well, I can't. I still can't. So this is like maybe like another weird art of Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, it could have been. That's what I'm thinking. I think it's something along the lines of Swords to Plowshares.
Just out of curiosity, I'll check how many Swords to Plowshares
Probably,
printings.
yeah. Probably too
Oh
many.
my.
I'm very happy like these types of cards exist. I also like to, I'm enjoying different cards of types of basics for my cube and some special arts and stuff like that. But it certainly does make the life of a commentator a little bit harder now that there are so many versions of every card.
Yeah. Yes, I look at Card Market and it says there are 69 nice versions of Swords to Plowshares.
Nice.
That's a lot of versions. That's a lot of versions.
Wow, David still hasn't drawn land number 2. That is actually unreal. Passes the turn, still on that Ancient Tomb. William is going to be able to play land number 6 if he has a land drop this turn. Looks like he's sitting on some reactive cards. I mean, he now has enough mana to hard cast a Force of Will.
Allow to Spettle pass. Oh my god.
Wow.
This does not inspire confidence. I think another Orcish Bowmasters. So down to 13, 4 power on the battlefield, 3 mana end step, cycle at Xander's Triumph, Xander's Lounge. And that is Hull Breacher, maybe? I think that's a Hull Breacher. So it's 2 and a blue, a 3/2 flash creature, yeah. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, which is the case now with the Cycle Triumph, instead you create a treasure token.
Okay, so pretty much something like a Narset, stopping your opponent from drawing too many cards, something like you want to play in response to a Brainstorm.
Yeah, and you also get awarded a treasure, which is pretty useful. Okay, 3 mana. Counting cards, so probably Uro coming down. Yeah. Oh no, Murktide Regent. So putting pressure on David heavily. So Murktide is going to be a 6/6, right? So it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 power on the field right now. And David scoops them up.
All right, 1-1. William equalizes. That was as unfortunate as it gets for David never finding his second land. Was that game 2 or was that game 3? I'm a little bit confused right now.
Yeah, that was just game 2. But I think we'll be finishing up the round and moving into the next one because players have finished their matches. Because we're using the time walk technology.
Visible confusion. I mean, we want to be able to bring you at least the result of the match, right? There might be a judge call. There might be. I mean, I'm gonna try to find out for you what exactly is happening. So we're live now.
Okay, so we are indeed going into game 3 after all. So, okay, so players are getting ready now. David on the play. Okay. Oh, actually, we're already off.
All right. So yeah, thanks to the time walk technology, we're gonna be able to start game 3 right away, and hopefully this time David is gonna be able to draw a few more lands, as that was quite an unlucky game 2 for him. William starts with a turn 1 Ponder.
Yeah. Draw a card off of Underground Sea. Pass the turn. Let's see if David can master some kind of explosive start because we've talked about turn 1 Embry, turn 1 Patchwork Automaton, enabling these types of things, but we see none of that.
Urza Saga, nothing else turn 1. Turn 2, there is an Ancient Tomb, but a Lotus Petal, so David now can start making construct tokens. So now the game is going to be more interesting. This is exactly how you want to start pressuring the 5-color control deck. End of turn, use the Urza Saga, make a construct token. So it's going to be interesting seeing what David decides to do on turn 3 with that Urza Saga.
So Urza Saga is pretty good, and the question is whether 5-color control has a ways to get rid of a mass of tokens. So you would be looking at Terminus or Dress Down or Engineered Explosives. And we do see one Terminus, actually, and 2 more in the sideboard. So that's 3 total. That's plenty. But no Dress Downs, no EEs. But yeah, I think triple for Terminus is good enough.
David draws a card for his turn, puts another chapter counter on the Urza Saga, decides to make another construct token, and then the Saga leaves, getting him a... I think it's resolving already, right? So as the chat is pointing out, he could get a Pithing Needle, right? I think there is a fetch land in play.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. That would be brutal. That'd be super brutal. And
that
cheeky.
would have been able to stop that.
I think it's likely that it's not even in the deck right now.
Okay. So because either Spellbomb and a Seed of the Synod. So how big are these construct tokens right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's an attack for 5. That's actually a pretty big clock. I think William does have a Swords to Plowshares in his hand, though. Brainstorm.
Yeah, so he might try to see if there's a Terminus. If there is a Terminus, he just lets it in and then sweeps the board. If there is no Terminus, he might go for Swords to Plowshares. So I think this is the way you might want to look at it. Yeah, players are really battling it out here because 6 and 1 in prime position for the top 8. But if they lose 1 more or even draw, this could get sketchy. Such a big field, 700 players playing for a beautiful, unique 2023 Legacy Championship of Europe Force of Will painting.
Yeah, a very special oversized card with a special art. But the one I would have my eyes on is the vintage one. Having a Black Lotus oversized card with a special art. I mean, that's got to be a very, sought after card. If you are whether you're a collector or if you just enjoy Magic, then that's got to be one of the very, very special prizes. So back to the game, David, or rather William, finished resolving the Brainstorm, and now there's a Force of Will countering
Lavinia Azorius Renegade. And William has drawn a one-off Meltdown, which is an X and a red sorcery that destroys each artifact with total cost of X or zero or X or less. Now, each artifact, so it will destroy Seat of the Synod. It will destroy the constructs.
Oh my god.
And he might even just pay a single red and just leave the Ether Spellbomb, but destroy double construct Synod. So this is an absolute blowout.
Are you telling me that David is going to be back to his one Ancient Tomb like he was in game?
Yeah.
In game 2, the entire game. That would be brutal.
Okay, now we have a very simple judge call because William, I think, accidentally looked at the second card from the top, which is probably like a small infraction of looking at extra cards, which is an easy fix there. Yeah, probably a warning and life moves on. Yeah, showing even the emotion.
Yeah, pretty typical thing. The cards get stuck together. That's why we use the ultimate card Katana sleeves. Nothing ever happens there.
Yeah, nice. Also, there's a classic set of questions, which is, do you know any other cards in the deck? Have you scryed, mulliganed, played, preordain?
Exactly. It's always good to call a judge. Like when you're not sure, what's happening. It's nothing personal against your opponent. The judges are there to help you. And if you need help, if you need to ask about a ruling, if you need an oracle text on a foreign card, if something like this happen, always call a judge. They will tell you exactly how to proceed, make sure that everything goes according to the rules, and the game can continue.
So 2 mana, I think we'll go for Meltdown. Wow. Just to destroy even the Spellbomb to disable potential affinity shenanigans, just 1 artifact fewer. Now, David could have a Force back. I mean, that's not impossible. We don't know his hand. Yeah, so resolving Ponder right now. And we will see what comes out of that. Okay, fetch. find Scrubland, I think. And we might see Meltdown X equals 1 again. Yeah, Meltdown, destroy everything. Pass the turn. No counter back. And now we play. Oh, would you believe that? It's a clown car. Which is not something I had on my bingo card. It certainly was not. Okay, so William is reading Clown Car, much to nobody's surprise. Yeah, and we're looking for some tokens. Clown Car indeed. So, okay, so I've got a trivia question to you, Martin.
Yes.
Trivia. So, this is an unhinged or like an unset card, but it is tournament legal. How do you know if an unset card is or is not tournament legal?
I have no idea. I would probably be asking Judge. I would be thinking, well, is this even legal? Like, is my opponent allowed to play this? So,
yeah, so in the past we had a different frame to know that the card, an uncard, was legal or not. But now at the very bottom you've got a hologram, right? There is a hologram that shows the card is like legal and is difficult to falsify and stuff like that. If the hologram on the bottom, the stamp on the bottom is an acorn, the thing I think that like squirrels eat or something. If it's an acorn, it's not tournament legal. If it's a classic oval shape, it is legal. So
okay.
Yeah, so you need to make like an acorn check. Ta-da!
You know.
That's the answer. Yep. And right. Kappa Cannoneer.
So it looks like David is finally allowed to play some cards. You know, progress his board a little bit. Kappa Cannoneer. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Thanks to the improvisability, David was able to put it into play a little bit ahead of schedule. But I think William is still, you know, a little bit ahead, given that he hasn't really spent too many resources dealing with a bunch of.
Oh
David's...
my goodness!
Oh wow!
Oh,
ooh, okay. There it is. Force of will countering your terminus. Does William have a counter of his own?
Like the moment you said that David can finally play his cards, we immediately saw a terminus flipped off the top. But we'll see, because Kappa Cannoneer has Ward 4. It's no joke. Like, William wouldn't be able to Swords to Plowshares it and pay. He just doesn't have enough mana. So, but Force of Will worked. So, So, if David wins through Meltdown, I think his opponent will just, melt down, I guess. 4 mana, okay, 4, 5, 6, 7 power on the field. We've got a 2-power vehicle, Orcish Bowmasters. Kill one of the tokens. Drop. And Bashin. Now, William is
the good thing about the Kappa Cannoneer is once you start putting artifacts into play, it's going to start being unblockable. So William is certainly incentivized to chump block there, even if David doesn't really add anything to the board, because he doesn't really want to die to the Cannoneer just attacking twice in the next couple of turns if David draws an artifact. Wow, that's a 5-mana Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing we talked about. In response, Metallic Rebuke. Oh my goodness. And that's something that you really need to remember, that whenever you've got such a trigger like Ward, like Esper Sentinel trigger, you should allow your opponent to pay first, and then you can still counter. So, so that's important. That's exactly what happened. David, in the driver's seat, it seems. So is that meltdown just not enough? That would be unreal if it wasn't enough. But it's possible that David will win through meltdown, terminus, swords to plowshares, which is really impressive if you ask me.
Yeah, that clown car doing a lot of work actually in this game.
Yeah. Leyline binding.
So looks like
Okay.
William is gonna try again. Pay 5 mana.
Oh.
Okay, so here the way it works is Leyline Binding needs to come into play and then it triggers. So if you want to counter that, you have to do that right away. So your opponent would not be paying the 4 mana. You have to counter it right away. So William is left with at least the other 4 mana to do something else. And he does actually have a big creature. He does have a Murktide. Looks like 5 cards are getting exiled. So that's a pretty big flyer right now. What David needs to draw is just find some ways to put artifacts into play to make the
Yeah, just
unblockable.
any artifact. Literally any, even Urz. Oh, that is an artifact, yeah.
Yep, that works.
Trigger. Boop. Unblockable smash. And it's not a small smash because it's for 6. William down to a 9 cannot fetch anymore. Down to 1 cannot fetch anymore.
I just read the chat.
Yeah.
David is firmly in the driver's seat of his clown car.
Yeah, I mean, the stock of the clown car is just going through the roof. Buy your clown cars right now.
In the driver's seat. I'm just having way too much fun with this. So what happens now? William needs to find a creature. If he finds a creature, he would be able to attack with the Murktide, play 2 blockers, try to stay alive. Wow.
Well, that's
okay. A Leyline Binding is going to do that as well. So finally paying the full price, 1 mana for the binding, 4 mana for the ward trigger. That exiles the Cannoneer.
he passes back. He
Wow,
passes
actually,
back.
so he tries to play around something like an either spell bomb, a bound spell, something along those lines, which tells me that he's got the win in his hand, right? If you are not willing to attack with the big flyer, which would be a 2-turn clock against someone who has 0 cards, then I would expect that the card in your hand is definitely worth the extra weight.
I think there is Terminus on top, and he was just kind of not sure what to do with it. Unless he's like a seasoned player and he knows to bluff Terminus from time to time. Just, just peek, pretend you're thinking, and then draw. Yeah, but I think William not attacking and playing around a lot of things is just, much to David's satisfaction because he's got more time than he otherwise would have.
Well, I mean, the clown card can also be crude, right? So he's also playing around David drawing any creature. Right? It's not just a bound spell. Any creature could crew the car. So if William decides to attack with the dragon, then there is a decent amount of life draws for David that could come off the top of his deck.
Okay, he attacks for 1. William blocks. We've got the trade. Then you do this. Okay. Pass the turn. Draw an upkeep. And GG. William takes it down 7-1 for 5 color control. David falls to X and 2. Yeah, this is...
Congratulations to William. Unfortunately for David, that was kind of brutal. The second game, stuck on an Ancient Tomb forever. Pretty much the entire game, right? And then game 3, have your board reset with meltdown. With the 1 meltdown that your opponent has.
Yeah.
Obviously, he doesn't know that, but with the 1 meltdown into this situation where he was super, super, super close. But eventually, William is able to turn the game around with a giant Murktide Regent. So congratulations to William. This concludes round number 8. But before that, we want to thank our sponsors. In this case, we want to give a big shout out to Ultimate Guard. If you want to take a look at some of their products, which include all kinds of gaming accessories like sleeves, like deck boxes, Speaking of which, you should definitely try the katana sleeves. You should definitely try the sidewinders. Those are my favorite products. Binders, boxes, whatever you need for your Magic cards or other cards for that matter. You can take a look at ultimateguard.com, and if you want to shop at the store, you can use the code you can see on the screen right now. Eternal UG10 is going to give you a 10% discount on your entire purchase throughout the weekend. I think the code's also going to be available on Monday if you want to take some time to really figure out what you're going to get. And yeah, big shout out to Ultimate Guard, not only a sponsor of this event, but we also work very closely with them, with Team Channel Fireball. They're a sponsor of the entire team, and they have been making a big Magic name in the whole community lately. So make sure you check that out. This concludes round number 8. We will be back in a few minutes with round number 9, and then that's going to be almost the end of the day. Round number 10 is going to close it out for today, and then the top 8 starts tomorrow at 11 a.m. local time. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere.